Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. How are you guys doing today? How are you guys doing today? Oh, my goodness. Woo! So, I have been absolutely annihilated lately on fatigue. And so I took yesterday. I got a lot of sleep, fell asleep. I was watching an episode of Overlord, and I fell asleep halfway through it. I didn't even make it through the episode. It was great. And but then, of course, I woke up at like 6 this morning. Oh, my goodness. There it is. There's the fatigue. So, so now it's like, well, I'm tired again. I've circled back around to being tired, but it's all good. It's all good. I'm just normal levels of tired now. But anyway, so I did take yesterday off. Thank you for indulging that. Trying to keep the daytime content up as well. And we've got a little bit of a stream tonight, and we've got several issues to talk about. We're going to be looking at the dissenting opinions in the Supreme Court from Thomas and Alito. The Alito opinion being joined by Gorsuch over the question of whether or not the Supreme Court should hear any of the cases. Well, one particular case, but really I think they're speaking for all of them in a way, related to the election. So we're going to do that. We're going to go through a New York Times article that suggests that critical thinking is bad for you. Yep. Who wants to have that silly, pesky critical thinking thing? That seems terrible. Why would we want to do that? Then we've got various stories from the news, including an attempt to ban Grand Theft Auto games from Chicago. Because why the hell not? Oh my goodness. This is where we are. But as a preview, so I have been on the phone, like, and recording and doing stuff all day the past couple days. Like, I'm like, where's my day? Where's my day going? I'm supposed to be a stupid YouTuber where I spend 8 minutes of my day making a thing and then I buy Lamborghinis. That's supposed to be my life, and it's not. Here I am. I'm like doing stuff all day long, and I'm talking to all sorts of people, and I'm like recording more than one video, and I like, where's where I just get to sit around and do nothing? I want that. And it's not happening. It's making me very, very frustrated. But I was going to tell you about some of those calls, some of those people I've been talking to, and tell you kind of where things are going with me, with the channel, all that stuff. I figured we open the show with that a little bit, let people fill in, and then we'll get into the topics. So, real quick, I did something today that I'm looking to do more of, probably once a week. And I'm trying to find like a consistent time to do it. But I did a long form video. Long form, it was 30 minutes. 30-minute video. And I did it as a premiere. And it was a more in-depth sort of analysis video, but it's which, you know, we do the in-depth analysis stuff on here, but with the interaction and stuff like that, it's a little bit different, right? Because there's feedback, there's there's super chats, there's stuff like that that's going on a live stream, and it's fun. It's a fun thing, but for some topics, it'd be neat to just have some sort of unbridled analysis. So I did that with the Thunderfoot copyright issue, and I hope you guys very much enjoyed that video. If you saw it, I did that as a premiere, which consequently, I think the way premieres work is they kind of launch a video into some level of success. So it's doing pretty well, especially for being such a long form video. So I'm probably going to be doing more of those premieres, like once a week type thing, where there's a bit of longer, more in-depth content along with the shorter update and news type content as well. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. No firm plans on that, but I do encourage you, if you didn't catch that video, to give it a look. I think I went through the issue pretty well. I am waiting. I've gotten a lot of people bitching about it. So I know I did good. Apparently I have killed the entire photojournalist industry through my fair use analysis, because people can't get around the idea that fair use doesn't care what the original work is. They're like, well, what about photojournalists? Yeah, if it's fair use, it's still fair use. It's still a real thing. It doesn't matter. Well, like, what about, why do news stations pay people? Well, for lots of reasons that they do that, but, there's exclusivity agreements, there's all sorts of stuff that news stations would use. None of this matters to the fair use question. The question is the use of this particular thing fair? People they can't process it. They're like, but he charges, so therefore you can't use it. Well, if it's fair, you can. I've also seen, God, why is there so much work going into opening this bottle of gin? Well, now that sounds like an alcoholic right there. Why is it so hard to get my gin? Look at this stupid bottle of gin, has all this paper all over it. Yeah, people just can't process it. So, there's that. I've also gotten a slew of people who are like, well, Leonard French will do a video on this. And I'm like, cool. Leonard French is a copyright attorney who's practicing. You should probably check it out and see what he says. I'm curious to see what he says too. But it's the internet's such a weird place because people Leonard French, you should actually listen to Legal Eagle. That's where you get a refined opinion. Yes, if there's anyone known for doing refined, in-depth breakdowns of issues, it's Legal Eagle. Anyway, so I like it. We might look at some of the comments just because they make me laugh. And there's some on my video, but not too many. It's mostly like Thunderfoot, posted that I was doing the video. And so people have been on there, and man, it's great. It's great. Anyway, that's one thing I'm looking for. Other announcements. I have created sort of a locals community. All right. And it's coming. It's not, I think you can technically sign up for it now, but you're not signing up for anything. So it's there. You can go find Rekieta Law on locals. It's real. That's me. I'm working with the locals team to get it fully operational and ready to go. I will be the goal of the locals. The goal of that locals community is actually to end Patreon and Subscribestar if possible. I would much prefer to be on a platform like locals than either of them. So, I will be working on creating a space on locals that will be a concentrated space for the community. I would prefer it. I think it's a better platform. I spent a long time talking with a person from locals, and they're helping me get the page set up. For reference, I've been on Patreon for over 3 years. I'm somewhere up in the Patreon creators. I don't know exactly how far I am up the Patreon scale. I can check this out, I think, right? Is it Graftreon? Here we go. Let's check the rankings on me for Patreon. On Graftreon. Come on. There we go. I'm not expecting to be like, a top 5 person or anything. Oh man, the search is taking forever. I must be actually bad at it. Come on, where are you? Chapo Trap House is making $172,000 a month on Patreon. Why? Oh, God. I'll never understand this world. Anyway. Well, while that finishes looking forever, we'll talk about it this way. The short story on this is being on Patreon for 3 years, being, again, I'm not like a top, I don't know if I'm a top 100 creator. I don't think there's anything like that. But I do okay on there. I have never once spoken to staff at Patreon. They've never reached out to talk to me. They've never done anything. They've never said, hey, how can we support you? They've never done anything at all. Locals wanted to talk to me, like as a person, as a business, to talk to me. And it's like, already you've done more for me in building my community than Patreon ever has in 3 years. So I'm really excited to talk to them. Can we? Graftreon, where are you at? Why are you so bad at this? Just find me. Just look me up. It's not going to do it. My Graftreon's slow. I think someone said 5,000 something. But yeah, so the locals page is coming. Very, very much. Angry Baneling, but you're not locals staff. I would much rather have them harangue me to get on the platform than you. Okay. Next. Hey, what's up, Good Logic? How you doing, buddy? I heard I'm supposed to razz you about a live stream or something. But last thing before we finally get started, or fully get started, I have engaged in a sponsorship deal, and I think it'll be fun. So the sponsorship is coming. It's for a teeth aligning system. So this is cool. I will have details as it comes, and I'll show. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do the teeth aligning thing, and then you guys can laugh at me. So it'll be fun times. So Raid Shadow Legend. I need to follow up with Raid Shadow Legends actually, because I do have a grift opportunity with Raid. I do have that. So anyway, so that's that. Oh, and I thought I was going to secure a chair sponsorship, and I was super excited, and then I found out it was a scam. I was like, "Aw, man, I was hoping for a chair. I'm just waiting for a chair. If you're a chair company, what are you doing? Thousands of people see these videos every day, and they're looking at this chair. Nobody knows. Do you guys even know who makes this chair? Nobody knows that. Imagine if it said right on there, like, Thermaltake, Secret Lab, the other one. Imagine that right there, right behind my stupid face. It'd be perfect. But no. So I'm still trying to lock down a chair. Because this one is, look, Chair Kun has seen better days. But we're working on that. So that's what's going on right now. I've been doing phone calls with people on stuff like that, trying to get things in order. The one thing I will say about locals is once that community opens up, I am going to shill it hard because I actually believe in the product. Patreon, I don't shill, much to the chagrin of many people. I don't shill the Patreon very hard, but I will be shilling locals because I want to do some locals exclusive content, where I go on there and get to say some things that you maybe can't say on YouTube or whatever. So that's going to be kind of the advantage. Locals hosts its own content, by the way. They host video content. So it's not like you're watching YouTube through locals. If you're watching something that's posted to there, it's the actual thing. And I do plan on posting some exclusive stuff over there. So just keep a note on that, on what that is. Or on that. And as I talk about it going forward, understand that's why. I gotta grab my glass here. I'm back. So this is what I'm drinking tonight. This is Heyman's London Dry Gin. Now, I have Heyman's Old Tom Gin. I really, really like it. I've never tried this dry gin. Smells similar. Smells like gin. Oh, so people are asking what Locals is. Locals is, it's like a mix of, it's like a private Facebook almost. That's kind of the best way I can describe how the platform looks. You join it's like a private Facebook group, but without the content moderation. So if you want to go on there and say, there is no God but Allah, Allahu Akbar, or whatever, you can do that and no one's going to moderate it. So, yes, Dave Rubin is behind Locals. But don't hold that against Locals or whatever. Eagle Bear, apparently you can say the N-word. If people want to go spam the N-word, I guess they can. I don't tend to do that. Like, that's not my grift. But you can say it. So I will be creating a free speech. The only thing you can't do is post porn or threats or like actual threats of violence. Those are the two things. And I guess that's how that goes. That's gin. That sure is gin. But the The one thing I do have to do is somehow figure out the Discord, because I know people like to I know people like to post the porn. But that can be in the Discord or whatever still. So, whatever. We'll figure it out. Well, Siren Jag, they just won't let them do it. I think the reason that they don't do the porn is to avoid issues of potential child stuff. I think that's the main thing. But I don't know. But yeah, so that's where that stuff is. Now, there are some chats that I need to read. There's one particular large chat that I definitely need to get to, but there was a chat that came in before, and since YouTube changed things around, I have to point out how much I hate that every single time. There's a chat that got taken away. I mean, it's there, it just got moved. Bad Vibe says, would you look at this? Leah Tanga is gracing us with his presence. Some people think they can just call in. Who's Leah Tanga? I don't know who that is. Magoose says, what exactly is a dissent? Can things said in a dissent be used in future cases? Sorry, I don't know much about law, trying to learn. Came over from Yellow Flash and Adam Krigler. Love your videos. Hey, thank you, Magoose. Welcome. Let me briefly talk about that. So a dissent is when the court issues an opinion. When the court issues an opinion, there's an opportunity for any justice who doesn't agree with the opinion to file a dissent. And a dissent is just their opportunity to express their disagreement officially, to officially disagree and provide the reasoning for it. Can things said in a dissent be used in future cases? Yes, but they're not authoritative. They have no authority. They're not legally controlling. You can't have precedent from a dissent. However, they can be persuasive. And we have had some actual major shifts in law over the years based on arguments raised in dissenting opinions that are then later brought up, maybe 20, 30, 40 years later. Those dissenting arguments are raised again as the way the law should be read, and things do get changed. So that's what a dissenting opinion is. That's not, the only. Justices do not write a dissent for the idea that they'll be used later to justify a change in the law. They write a dissent just to levy their formal and learned opposition to the opinion. So, okay, let me get this. Where are the decisions? I gotta find that filing. Here we go, order list. All right, I'm getting the document pulled up here, and then we're going to go through this. These are, a couple pages each. They'll take a little bit of time to go through, but I think it's worth going through. I think it's worth going through them because I think Justice Thomas is making a lot of use of dissent. Now, someone who is really famous for dissenting was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who, maybe unfortunately for her, didn't dissent to her own death. So that was upheld, but that's how it goes. But she is famous for her dissenting opinions. Like, that is a big part of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So famous for it that they made a stupid game called I Dissent. I actually own it. Lady Rackets bought it for me because she's mean, and she bought me this game. And so at some point, what I need to do is convince Lady Rackets to play the I Dissent game with me on a stream. But we'll figure that out. We'll play the Ginsburg game. Okay. The big chat from Jason McConnell. Jason, thank you so much. He says, never mind a locals page. When are we getting the Rekieta OnlyFans page? It would just be me in my massage chair, but naked. That's all it would be. I sat in the massage chair. The last 2 days, I was too busy to do the massage chair. Like, too busy, and then I fell unconscious. So I didn't actually sit in my massage chair. I've missed 2 days of it. And I don't know what to do about that. I can't get that back. But I sat in my massage chair today. And then I woke up at the end. I woke up. Lady Ragged's like, you need to go. You need to go get the kids. And I was like, what? And then she apologized for waking me up, like, by yelling at me. It was great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Lady Rackets. All right, so we have this document. Oh, one more. Tina says, Nick is trying to get rid of Chair-kun. We won't stand for it. Look, when Chair-kun dies, you'll know. There will be a stream. We'll put Chair-kun down like a communist or whatever. Take Chair-kun out back and get the guns out of the lake or something. JL Not Here says, if Walls can't recover from his cranial rectal inversion, here's to a drink that may be missed at the bash. Have you read Russell Greer's book? I saw it at Half Price Books. I like the idea of sending you more high IQ books. Wait, Russell Greer's book, Why I Sued Taylor Swift? That book? I read it all on stream with Sriracha. We went through the whole thing. But if you're talking about a different book, no. Okay. Let's take a look at this. So this is the Republican Party of Pennsylvania versus Veronica de Graffenried. And Viva Fry and I have both covered a summary of this, but I want to go through the whole dissent. I said in my summary video that I would go through the whole dissent on a live stream. This is about integrity. Integrity. We're going to go through it because I want people to see. You don't read a lot of dissent, just in general, and even less if you're not a lawyer. So I want people to see what the dissent looks like in this. I want to talk about the arguments that Thomas raises. So indulge me for a minute, and then we're going to read Alito's dissent too, which is shorter than Thomas's, but we're in for about 14 pages of law here. So there's that. So this is versus, Veronica de Graffenried. This was versus Bookvar, but Bookvar stepped down for bungling a constitutional amendment. So that's that. All right. So the motions of Donald J. Trump for President Inc. for leave to intervene. This is the ruling of the court, and this is irrelevant to the dissent. They denied to hear the case. That's all you need to know from that paragraph is they denied to hear the case. Justice Thomas dissenting from the denial of cert. The Constitution gives to each state legislature authority to determine the manner of federal elections. Yet both before and after the 2020 election, non-legislative officials in various states took it upon themselves to set the rules instead. As a result, we received an unusually high number of petitions and emergency applications contesting those changes. The petitions here present a clear example. Pennsylvania legislature established an unambiguous deadline for receiving mail-in ballots, 8 p.m. on Election Day. And I was just on Uncivil Laws channel talking with him and Nate the lawyer, and we covered this subject. That was a great time. Always appreciate getting to talk to those guys. And I like both of them because they're both very smart and they're both very good at challenging the ways we think about stuff. And Nate raised some really good challenges that we had that we discussed about this opinion and this subject. I can't go through all of them, but you should check it out. You should check out Kurt's latest stream on uncivil law. Okay. But yeah, they clear an unambiguous deadline for receiving mail-in ballots, 8 p.m. on Election Day. Dissatisfied, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court extended that deadline by 3 days. The court also ordered officials to count ballots received by the new deadline, even if there was no evidence, such as a postmark, that the ballots were mailed by Election Day. That decision to rewrite the rules seems to have affected too few ballots to change the outcome of any federal election. But that may not be the case in the future. These cases provide us with an ideal opportunity to address just what authority non-legislative officials have to set election rules, and to do so well before the next election cycle. The refusal to do so is inexplicable. Random 11, I did not tweet that out. I sent them a super chat, and then they invited me on the stream, so I just popped in for the last hour or so. Gerard Garvin says, can you stream on locals? They're working on it. Oh, I need to do this. This stream will be uploaded to the archive channel. Just a reminder, there is an archive channel for all live streams. YouTube.com/Rekieta Law Live is the channel. It's now in the chat, and I'm pinning the comment. There is an archive channel. All live streams get uploaded to the archive channel. So if you want to catch a replay, if you miss a live stream, that's where you got to go. The AK guy got a second strike. Who's the AK guy? I don't know who that is. Okay. So anyway, like most states, Pennsylvania has a long history of limiting the use of mail-in ballots. But in October 2019, the Pennsylvania legislature overhauled its election laws. Relevant here, it gave all voters the option of voting by mail, and it extended the deadline for officials to receive mail ballots by several days to 8 p.m. on Election Day. Then, in response to COVID-19, the legislature again amended the law but decided not to extend the receipt deadline further. Displeased with that decision, the Pennsylvania Democratic Party sued in state court. It argued that the court could extend the deadline through a vague clause in the state constitution providing in relevant part that, quote, elections shall be free and equal. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court agreed. So, elections shall be free and equal means 3-day extension. There you go. That's what it means. I don't see how you don't understand that. Let's see. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court agreed. It held that this free and equal provision enabled the court to extend the deadline 3 days to accommodate concerns about postal delays. Petitioners promptly moved for emergency relief, filing an application for a stay on September 28th. That application easily met our criteria for granting relief. Not only did parties on both sides agree that the issue warranted cert, but there also was no question that petitioners faced irreparable harm. Quoting Maryland versus King, anytime a state is enjoined by a court from effectuating statutes enacted by representatives of its people, it suffers a form of irreparable injury. Petitioners further established a fair prospect of cert and reversal. For more than a century, this court has recognized that the Constitution, quote, operates as a limitation upon the state in respect of any attempt to circumscribe the legislative power to regulate federal elections. Because the federal Constitution, not state constitutions, gives state legislatures authority to regulate federal elections, petitioners presented a strong argument that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision violated the Constitution by overriding the clearly expressed intent of the legislature, quoting Bush v. Gore. Despite petitioners' strong showing that they were entitled to relief, we divided 4-4 and thus failed to act. Thank you, Justice Roberts. Terrible. Terrible. 4 days later, petitioners filed the first of these petitions and moved to expedite consideration so the court could decide the merits before Election Day. But by that time, Election Day was just over a week away. So we denied the motion to expedite, even though the question was of national importance, and there was a strong likelihood that the state Supreme Court decision violates the federal Constitution. Now that the petitions are before us and under the normal briefing schedule, I see no reason to avoid them. Indeed, the day after we denied petitioners' motion to expedite, the case became even more worthy of review. The Eighth Circuit split from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, granting a preliminary injunction against an attempt by the Minnesota Secretary of State to extend the legislature's deadline to receive ballots by 7 days. This divide on an issue of undisputed importance would justify cert in almost any case. That these cases concern federal elections only further heightens the need for review. Okay, so what he's talking about here, and this is important, part of what goes into whether or not the Supreme Court will take a case is the idea of a circuit court split. That means that two different appellate circuits have interpreted the same thing in different ways. So now the Supreme Court has to come in and say, wait, these are two different federal courts, and they're interpreting federal law in two different ways. The Supreme Court then has to come in and resolve that dispute and decide which interpretation is correct. That is part of the decision for granting cert. So in this case, that circuit court split happened, and they're still not looking at it. Two different circuits are interpreting this law differently. Elections are of the most fundamental significance under our constitutional structure. Through them, we exercise self-government. But elections enable self-governance only when they include processes that, quote, give citizens, including the losing candidates and their supporters, confidence in the fairness of the election. Confidence in the integrity of our electoral processes is essential to the functioning of our participatory democracy. Unclear rules threaten to undermine this system. They sow confusion and ultimately dampen confidence in the integrity and fairness of elections. To prevent confusion, we have thus repeatedly, although not as consistently as we should, blocked rule changes made by courts close to an election. So they've done this before, is what he's saying. An election system lacks clear rules when, as here, different officials dispute who has authority to set or change those rules. This kind of dispute brews confusion because voters may not know which rules to follow. Even worse, with more than one system of rules in place, competing candidates might each declare victory under different sets of rules. We are fortunate that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision to change the receipt deadline for mail-in ballots does not appear to have changed the outcome in any federal election. This court ordered the county boards to segregate ballots received later than the deadline set by the legislature. And none of the parties contend that those ballots made an outcome determinative difference in any relevant federal election. So they're saying, they ordered any of these ballots coming in to be set aside, and the parties themselves didn't argue that they made a difference. So they're just presuming that it's correct. But we may not be so lucky in the future. Indeed, a separate decision by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court may have already altered an election result. A different petition argues that after Election Day, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court nullified the legislative requirement that voters write the date on mail-in ballots. So the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania was just deciding all sorts of rules that the legislature wrote didn't matter. So that's nice. According to public reports, one candidate for a state Senate seat claimed victory under what she contended was the legislative rule that dates must be included on the ballots. A federal court noted that this candidate would win by 93 votes under that rule. A second candidate claimed victory under the contrary rule announced by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. He was the one seated. So we've got a problem. That is not a prescription for confidence. Changing the rules in the middle of the game is bad enough. Such rule changes by officials who may lack authority to do so is even worse. When those changes alter election results, they can severely damage the electoral system on which our self-governance so heavily depends. If state officials have the authority they have claimed, we need to make it clear. If not, we need to put an end to this practice now before the consequences become catastrophic. At first blush, it may seem reasonable to address this question when it next arises. After all, the 2020 election is now over, and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision was not outcome determinative for any federal election. But whatever force that argument has in other contexts, it fails in the context of elections. For at least 3 reasons, the judiciary is ill-equipped to address problems, including those caused by improper rule changes, through post-election litigation. And we saw this, right? We saw this all over the place, where the courts just refuse to hear it because they aren't really equipped to do so. And this is going to touch on some things that I've been saying about all of the election lawsuits in just a second. And that's really a big reason why we're reading this, is because I like to be shown that I'm right by a Supreme Court justice. First, post-election litigation is truncated by firm timelines. That is especially true for presidential elections, which are governed by the Electoral Count Act passed in 1887. That act sets federal elections for the day after the first Monday in November, last year, November 3rd. Under a statutory safe harbor provision, a state has about 5 weeks to address all disputes and make a final determination of electors if it wants that decision to be conclusive. Last year's deadline fell on December 8th, and the Electoral College voted just 6 days later. 5 to 6 weeks for judicial testing is difficult enough for straightforward cases. For factually complex cases, compressing discovery, testimony, and appeals into this timeline is virtually impossible. Second, this time frame imposes especially daunting constraints when combined with the expanded use of mail-in ballots. Voting by mail was traditionally limited to voters who had defined, well-documented reasons to be absent. In recent years, however, many states have become more permissive, a trend greatly accelerated by COVID-19. In Pennsylvania, for example, mail-in ballots composed just 4% of ballots cast in 2018. But the legislature dramatically expanded the process in 2019, thereby increasing the mail-in ballots cast in 2020 to 38%. So 38% up from 4%. That's a bit of a change. It's a little bit. It's a little bit of a change. A little bit. This expansion impedes post-election judicial review because litigation about mail-in ballots is substantially more complicated. For one thing, as election administrators have long agreed, the risk of fraud is vastly more prevalent for mail-in ballots. The reason is simple. Absentee voting replaces the oversight that exists at polling places with something akin to an honor system. Heather Gerken, now dean of Yale Law School, explained in the same New York Times article that absentee voting allows for simpler and more effective alternatives to commit fraud on a larger scale, such as stealing absentee ballots or stuffing a ballot box, which explains why all the evidence of stolen elections involves absentee ballots and the like. Listen to this. The same article states that voting by mail is now common enough and problematic enough that election experts say there have been multiple elections in which no one can say with confidence which candidate was the deserved winner. Pennsylvania knows this well. Even before widespread absentee voting, a federal court had reversed the result of a state Senate election in Philadelphia after finding that the supposedly prevailing candidate, quote, conducted an illegal absentee ballot conspiracy, and that the election officials covertly facilitated the scheme with the specific purpose of ensuring a victory for that candidate. This problem is not unique to Pennsylvania, and it has not gone away. 2 years ago, a congressional election in North Carolina, way back in 2018, was thrown out in the face of evidence of tampering with absentee ballots. Because fraud is more prevalent with mail-in ballots, increased use of those ballots raises the likelihood that courts will be asked to adjudicate questions that go to the heart of election confidence. So he's got a nice little thing on fraud in there. Now, it's important to note for YouTube that I'm not advocating that fraud had any impact on the federal election in 2020. I'm merely reading the dissenting opinion of Justice Clarence Thomas, who is elucidating problems with absentee voting throughout history. Fraud is not the only aspect of mail-in ballots that complicates post-election judicial review. Also relevant are the corresponding safeguards that states put in place to ameliorate that heightened risk of fraud. To balance the strong interest of ballot access with the compelling interest in preserving the integrity of the election process, many states have expanded mail-in ballots to be sought to deter fraud and create mechanisms to detect it by requiring voters to return ballots in signed, dated secrecy envelopes. Some states also require witness or notary signatures. Tallying these ballots tends to be more labor-intensive, involves a high degree of subjective judgment, e.g. verifying signatures, and typically leads to a far higher rate of ballot challenges and rejections. Litigation over these ballots can require substantial discovery and labor-intensive fact review. In some cases, it might require sifting through hundreds of thousands or millions of ballots. It may require subjective judgment calls about the validity of thousands of ballots. Judicial review in this situation is difficult enough, even when the rules are clear and the number of challenge ballots is small. Adding a dispute about who can set or change the rules greatly exacerbates the problem. Third, and perhaps most significant, post-election litigation sometimes forces courts to make policy decisions that they have no business making. For example, when an official has improperly changed the rules, but voters have already relied on that change, courts must choose between potentially disenfranchising a subset of voters and enforcing the election provisions, such as receipt deadlines, that the legislature believes are necessary for election integrity. This is what I was talking about the entire time. Courts don't want to do this. They never want to do this. And I know all of the counter arguments. I hear you. I'm not advocating that that's the proper position. It's just the way a judge looks at it. All right. That occurred last year. After a court wrongly altered South Carolina's witness requirement for absentee ballots, this court largely reinstated the original rule, but declined to apply it to the ballots already cast. Setting rules well in advance of an election rather than relying on post-election litigation ensures that courts are not put in that untenable position. In short, post-election system of judicial review is at most suitable for garden variety disputes. It generally cannot restore the state of affairs before an election, is often incapable of testing allegations of systemic maladministration, voter suppression, or fraud that go to the heart of public confidence in election results. That is obviously problematic for allegations backed by substantial evidence, but the same is true where allegations are incorrect. After all, confidence in the integrity of our electoral process is essential to the functioning of our participatory democracy. An incorrect allegation, left to fester without a robust mechanism to test and disprove it, drives honest citizens out of the democratic process and breeds distrust of our government. This, of course, is what he's saying in relation to the idea that many of these justices hold that widespread voter fraud wasn't a thing. Thomas is saying, yes, your position that widespread voter fraud wasn't a thing, and saying it is but leaving it unchecked, like just leaving that to fester, is causing distrust in the electoral system. Because the judicial system is not well suited to address these kinds of questions in the short time period available immediately after an election, we ought to use available cases outside that truncated context to address these admittedly important questions. Here we have the opportunity to do so almost 2 years before the next federal election cycle. Our refusal to do so by hearing these cases is befuddling. There is a clear split on an issue of such great importance that both sides previously asked for us to grant cert, and there is no dispute that the claim is sufficiently meritorious to warrant review. By voting to grant emergency relief in October, 4 justices made clear that they think petitioners are likely to prevail. Despite pressing for review in October, respondents now ask us not to grant cert because they think the cases are moot. That argument fails. Okay, so what happened here is that the both parties, the petitioner and the respondent, so the Republicans, or the Trump campaign, I should say, and then the Pennsylvania Secretary of State, Bookvar, both of them agreed that the Supreme Court should review this case. Then after the election, only Pennsylvania said, well, you don't need to review it now. They changed their mind. They changed their opinion. So he's saying that argument fails. The issue presented is capable of repetition, yet evades review. This exception to mootness, which the court routinely invokes in election cases. By the way, this exception to mootness was also applied to Roe versus Wade. Because by the time, people don't know this, I don't think. God, I'm itchy. By the time Roe versus Wade was actually decided in the Supreme Court, Jane Roe's baby was born. Like, that person's still alive. That baby exists. And so part of the issue, one of the arguments was that for Roe versus Wade, that it was moot because the baby was alive. The pregnancy was resolved. Since the pregnancy was resolved, there's no reason for the court to hear it. And the Supreme Court said, no. If that's the case, this will never work because the timeline is too short to get a case up to the Supreme Court, so we never hear it. And so they have this way to get around that. Like, the timeline on the event is too short for the court to hear it, but it's going to be replicable. And then that's evading review by the nature of the event. So that applies where the challenged action is in its duration too short to be fully litigated prior to cessation or expiration, and there's a reasonable expectation that the same complaining party will be subject to the same action again. There's no reason to think that a woman would not get pregnant again and thus need to seek the same level of relief. It's also interesting, again, just briefly talking about Roe versus Wade, that Jane Roe is actually a pro-life advocate now. She's a pro-life advocate now. The birth of her daughter, I think it's a daughter, the birth of her child and the years of her life changed her mind. It changed her mind. Children tend to do that, by the way. Bad Vibe says, it's almost as if Thomas watches Boomer Law. Must be the nose. I, for one, am also vehemently pro-life. I'm so pro-life, I wish Jeffrey Epstein was still alive, so he could face justice. Okay, back to it. Here, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court issued its decision about 6 weeks before the election, leaving little time for review in this court. And there is a reasonable expectation that these petitioners, state Republican Party and the legislators, will again confront non-legislative officials altering election rules. In fact, various petitions claim that no fewer than 4 other decisions in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court implicate the same issue. Future cases will arise as lower state courts apply those precedents to justify intervening in elections and changing the rules. One wonders what this court waits for. We failed to settle this dispute before the election and thus provide clear rules. Now we again failed to provide clear rules for future elections. The decision to leave election law hidden beneath a shroud of doubt is baffling. By doing nothing, we invite further confusion and erosion of voter confidence. Our fellow citizens deserve better and expect more of us. I respectfully dissent. And the 2 who did not join Thomas are Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh. Those are the 2 who didn't join his opinion. Because now we're going to read Alito's dissent. I'm due for an allergy shot, I can tell. Oh my goodness. So, F name, L name says, how would you reform Scrotus? I was thinking a constitutional amendment to pick from state Supreme Court, downgrade to an observer on even courts, possibly removing Senate confirmation, 25-year term limit. How would I reform it? I'd put me on it. I'd put me on it and remove everyone else. That's what I would do. Okay, so this is Justice Alito and Justice Gorsuch on this opinion here. So this is the same thing. They're dissenting in the same case, and it's very important to see what they have to say about it as well. I agree with Justice Thomas that we should grant review in these cases. They present an important and recurring constitutional question, whether the elections or electors clauses of the United States Constitution are violated when a state court holds that a state constitutional provision overrides a state statute governing the manner in which a federal election is to be conducted. It's a little bit different than what Thomas was saying, but it is interesting. That question has divided the lower courts, and our review at this time would be greatly beneficial. In the cases now before us, a statute enacted by the Pennsylvania legislature unequivocally requires that mail-in ballots be received by 8 p.m. on Election Day. Nevertheless, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, citing a provision of the state constitution mandating that elections be free and equal, altered that deadline and ordered that mailed ballots be counted if received up to 3 days after the election. But the court, by an evenly divided vote, refused to do so. Oh, wait, no. Both the state... Sorry, he's got too many italics here. Both the state Republican and Democratic parties urged us to grant review and decide this question before the 2020 election. But the court, by an evenly divided vote, refused to do so. That unfortunate decision virtually ensured that this important question could not be decided before the election. Now the election is over, and there is no reason for refusing to decide the important question that these cases pose. The provision of the federal constitution conferring on state legislatures, not state courts, the authority to make rules governing federal elections would be meaningless if a state court could override the rules adopted by the legislature simply by claiming that a state constitutional provision gave the courts the authority to make whatever rules it thought appropriate for the conduct of a fair election. And this is a big question, right? The Constitution says state legislatures. It's very specific. If state courts can just say, yeah, but we can decide what the legislature meant, and they meant the opposite of what they said, well, then it's not really the state legislature. Then it's somebody else. Does that violate the Constitution? I happen to think so. These guys seem to indicate that they think so, but not the other 6 justices. Some noob X says, you've said ACB doesn't have a judicial philosophy that would have her vote for the election case. Can you elaborate? I don't know if I specifically said that. I think what I said about ACB was that she wasn't answering the question at her confirmation hearing. They wanted her to pledge to recuse herself. And my comment was she has no need to recuse herself, but she may wish to avoid the appearance of impropriety and abstain from hearing a case. That's what I said. I don't know about her judicial philosophy that would have her voting on the election case. Her judicial philosophy is professed to be originalism. And originalism should, in my basic read of the Constitution, suggest that the state legislature, not the state Supreme Court, would be the be-all, end-all named there. I would think ACB would be in support of this. Why she didn't hear the case, we don't know. She doesn't write anything down. Where were we? Okay. A decision in these cases would not have any implications regarding the 2020 election because Pennsylvania election officials were ordered to separate mailed ballots received after the statutory deadline. We know that the state Supreme Court's decision had no effect on the outcome of any election for federal office in Pennsylvania. But a decision would provide invaluable guidance for future elections. Some respondents contend that the completion of the 2020 election rendered these cases moot and that they do not fall within the mootness exception for cases that present questions that are capable of repetition but would otherwise evade review. They argue that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision arose from an extraordinary and unprecedented confluence of circumstances, specifically the COVID-19 pandemic, an increase in mail-in voting, and postal service delays, and that such a perfect storm is not likely to recur. Of course it will. Of course it will recur. Of course it will. That argument fails for three reasons. First, it does not acknowledge the breadth of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision. That decision claims that a state constitutional provision guaranteeing free and equal elections gives the Pennsylvania courts the authority to override even very specific and unambiguous rules adopted by the legislature for the conduct of federal elections, relying on the court's broad authority to craft meaningful remedies when required. That issue is surely capable of repetition in future elections. Indeed, it would be surprising if parties who are unhappy with the legislature's rules do not invoke this decision and ask the state courts to substitute rules that they find more advantageous. Second, by the way, that's a dog whistle. That's a dog whistle right there. Look, Republicans, you bring the case for the next election. Bring the case. He's telling them to. Second, the suggestion that we are unlikely to see a recurrence of the exact same circumstances we saw this fall misunderstands the applicable legal standard. In order for a question to be capable of repetition, it is not necessary to predict that history will repeat itself at a very high level of specificity. Third, it is highly speculative to forecast that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court will not find that conditions at the time of a future federal election are materially similar to those last fall. The primary election for Pennsylvania congressional candidates is scheduled to occur in 15 months, and the rules for the conduct of elections should be established well in advance of the day of an election. We may hope that by next spring the pandemic will no longer affect daily life, but that is uncertain. In addition, the state court's decision was not based solely on the pandemic, but was also grounded in part on broader concerns about the operation of the Postal Service, and concerns of this nature may persist or resurface. As voting by mail becomes more common and more popular, the volume of mailed ballots may continue to increase and thus pose delivery problems similar to those anticipated in 2020. For these reasons, the case now before us are not moot. There is a reasonable expectation that the parties will face the same question in the future and that the question will evade future pre-election review just as it did in these cases. These cases call out for review, and I respectfully dissent from the court's decision to deny certiorari. Cert. So, those are the two dissents. They're very similar. Alito clearly wanted to say a little bit more about evading pre-election review. Thomas spoke a lot about post-election review. He wanted to point out the pre-election review link, so he wanted to add his own statements to it. And they're both very good dissents. But of course, a dissent is not legally binding. Doesn't really help anything. Just says, hey, y'all is wrong. Y'all's wrong about this. And that's true. They are. Let me get the New York Times article up on No More Critical Thinking. This one. All right. What? Hold on. I don't want the about this result. Just a second. I gotta do this. I gotta do this the hard way. Oh my goodness. Man, I'm tired. Here we go. This is an opinion piece by Charlie Warzel. Look at his face. Don't go down the rabbit hole. Critical thinking, as we're taught to do it, isn't helping in the fight against misinformation. Kyra, I do need to do that. I do need to do that. Hopefully soon. I'll work on it. Who's this guy? Who's this guy? Who's this guy? Based in Missoula, Montana, Charlie Warzel became an opinion writer at large in 2019. Before that, he was a senior technology writer at BuzzFeed News. He's been a technology writer for Adweek magazine and a producer at NBC News. Oh. Imagine my shock. Right? Our attention economy allows grifters. What up? Shout out to my grifters. Conspiracy theorists, trolls, and savvy attention hijackers to take advantage of us and steal our focus. Leah Nash for the New York Times. Is that Leah Nash? Grifters. Oh my goodness. They're attacking me in my home here. I wish I could stop the yawning. That would be great. Can I stop yawning, please? Oh, Leah Nash took the photo. That's right. Okay. For an academic, Michael Caulfield has an odd request. Stop overthinking what you see online. Just listen to us. Just listen. Mr. Caulfield, a digital literacy expert at Washington State University, Vancouver, knows all too well that at this very moment, more people are fighting for the opportunity to lie to you than at perhaps any other point in human history. Blackwing02 says, how dare they attack and slander the mainstream media like that? No kidding. No kidding. Misinformation rides the greased algorithmic rails of powerful social media platforms and travels at velocities and in volumes that make it nearly impossible to stop. That alone makes information warfare an unfair fight for the average internet user. But Mr. Caulfield argues that the deck is stacked even further against us, that the way we're taught from a young age to evaluate and think critically about information is fundamentally flawed and out of step with the chaos of the current internet. Just teach your kids to blindly accept what's in the news. We wouldn't want those pesky little rodents thinking, would we? That would be a disaster. We're taught that in order to protect ourselves from bad information, we need to deeply engage with the stuff that washes up in front of us. Notice the language. Washes up in front of us. We have no agency in what we find and read online. It's just what you're a dumb machine that just automatically reads everything that is put in front of you by your machine god of YouTube, Google, Facebook, and Twitter. Their algorithmic religions are feeding you your lectitio divinatus. That you are stuck. You can't read anything else. You can't make up your own mind. You can't choose to read something else. Mr. Caulfield told me recently, he suggested that the dominant mode of media literacy, if kids get taught any at all, is that you'll get imperfect information and then use reasoning to fix that somehow. But in reality, that strategy can completely backfire. They're literally against independent thought here. Well, it can backfire because they might disagree with me. In other words, resist the lure of rabbit holes, in part by reimagining media literacy for the internet hellscape we occupy. Of course, a writer for the New York Times would view the internet as a hellscape because the New York Times narrative is routinely challenged in this hellscape. Mr. Bentham says they dropped the G word with the hard ER like it's nothing. Hey, Nick, what's up, my grifta? I know. Grifter is our word. Grifter is mine. That's our word. These scumbags thinking they can come into my space. It's often counterproductive to engage directly with content from an unknown source, and people can be led astray by false information. Influenced by the research of Sam Weinberg, a professor at Stanford, and Sarah McGrew, an assistant professor at the University of Maryland, Mr. Caulfield argued that the best way to learn about a source of information is to leave it and look elsewhere, a concept called lateral reading. So, if you've got something, you're supposed to not read it. And then go read something else. Perfect. That's perfect. That's the way to do it. Instead of reading what you're going to read, go read something else. For instance, imagine you were to visit Stormfront. Look at this hypothetical. A white supremacist message board to try to understand racist claims in order to debunk them. Is this what they do? Do these weirdos, they're like, I'm going to debunk racism. I'm going to go to Stormfront. I want to better understand racism, so I'm going to go talk to the racist. Okay. I'm switching from gin to whiskey. I don't know if I can take this. Debunked? Oh, there was a drop of gin still in the glass. That'll be an interesting glass of whiskey. Quote, even if you see through the horrible rhetoric, at the end of the day, you gave that place however many minutes of your time, Mr. Caulfield says. Even with good intentions, you run the risk of misunderstanding something. Imagine, look at how terrified these people are. Well, look, if you go to Stormfront, you might come out racist. They're implicitly stating that the racists at Stormfront have a good enough argument to convince you to become a racist. That's what this guy's actually saying. Think about this. Like, look, I mean, they're awful people, but if you go there, Like, what if you turn out awful? Kind of worried about it. Oh my God, these people have no convictions because they have no spines. We know this, right? Like all of the soy, all of the beta, all of the noodle-spined musings of these people, they can't go into a place with conviction and come out with the same conviction because they don't have it. They don't actually have conviction. They don't know how to support their position. They've never had to. It's always just been spoon-fed to them by the New York Times. If you're a conservative, especially a conservative who went to college, you know exactly what it's like to walk into a room with convictions that are the opposite of that room and to stand firm in them and to say, yeah, I get what you're saying, but nah, fam. That's not how it be. Some people say it don't be like that, but it do. I had to deal with this all throughout college. I had to walk into a room where 80+% of the people disagreed with me. And we had to have a discussion. And I had to just tell them, look, I hear you, but it's not correct. And I had to defend that position. And then I went to law school. And it's worse. And when you go to law school and you're like, look, but a trans woman is still a guy. And they're like, oh, how dare you? And I'm like, well, you dare when he's in the ring with you. You have to do that. These people have been coddled. They've been given a plush pillow to carry all of their positions for them. That plush pillow is their opinion being just literally given by mainstream media or whatever source. They don't have critical thinking, and they're mad that other people do. And the funny thing here is the level of projection that's going on. Well, if I went to Stormfront, I would come out a racist. So you'll go into Stormfront and come out a racist. Like, if I go to Stormfront and go read it, I'm going to go, okay, I see your statistical arguments, but I disagree with some of your conclusions and some of your suppositions as to why those things apply. I get it. I get the arguments you're making. I think they're flawed in this way, and this way. That's how I go and approach these sorts of websites. How they go is, these people are racist. I want to go understand them. I understand it all, and now I am racist. Remove black people. That's this person. That's crazy to me. How can you just go to a website and suddenly you're like, yeah, I didn't like you before, but now I'm into it. Okay. Wow. Even if you see through the horrible rhetoric, yeah, you gave them You run the risk of misunderstanding something. Because Stormfront users are way better at propaganda than you. You won't get less racist reading Stormfront critically, but you might be overloaded by information and overwhelmed. Again, anyone who's going to Stormfront to get less racist is weird. Why would you do that in the first place? Our current information crisis, Mr. Caulfield argues, is an attention crisis. The goal of disinformation is to capture attention, and critical thinking is deep attention, he wrote in 2018. People learn to think critically by focusing on something and contemplating it deeply. It gets deep inside them. To follow the information's logic and the inconsistencies. Yes. That's what critical thinking is. Good job describing it. It's also very, very important. Harbinger 345 says, so what I'm hearing is that thinking is too hard and I should leave it to these enlightened individuals because I'm also too dumb to think the right way. So when's the asteroid going to hit? Look, you'll never find out because you can't think about when the asteroid might hit or should hit. The natural human mindset is a liability in an attention economy. Who are you going to believe? Me or your own lying brain? It allows grifters, conspiracy theorists, trolls, and savvy attention hijackers to take advantage of us and steal our focus. Whenever you give your attention to a bad actor, you allow them to steal your attention from better treatments of an issue and give them the opportunity to warp your perspective, Mr. Caulfield wrote. Does anybody hands up understand the logical fallacy here? Does anybody understand the problem with this statement? It's inherent in the statement. It's a flaw of it's an informal flaw, but it is a flaw of logic here. To suss out who is a bad actor, you must apply critical thinking. It's an impossibility. Unless there's a list of good actors provided to you by some sort of diktat, you have to suss out the bad actor. There's a presupposition that Stormfront is a bad actor. Well, that is antithetical to the idea of critical thinking in the first place. Stormfront might be a bad actor or might be a good actor. What you have to do is you have to go and read it and decide for yourself if they're bad or good using your critical thinking skills. You have to reason through what they say. And again, I cannot believe that the left is routinely admitting that they can't out-argue a racist. I can't believe it. It's the weirdest admission on the planet. They go, look, we've tried and we just can't come up with a better argument than racism. And neither can you. You must be, if I can't do it, then neither can you. This is insane to me. Look at this weirdo. You can see why, of course. You can see why this guy can't stand up to anybody, including racists. One way to combat this dynamic is to change how we teach media literacy. You don't think about it, you listen to us. We will tell you what is proper media. Because they're racist, bro. I know. Sean Tillman, believe me, I know. They're awful. Oat says there is no war in Ba Sing Se. So there you go. There isn't one. There's no war there. Internet users need to learn that our attention is a scarce commodity that is to be spent wisely. Oh, we know. That's why no one's listening to you. This is the problem, right? They're jealous. They're jealous. You know what's funny? Is by the time that this live stream finishes getting views, it's more views on this article than this guy would normally get on any opinion piece he writes. It's just the reality. And they hate that. They hate it. Because they're writing brilliant stuff all the time. Opinion writer at large. This guy's got lots of opinions. He's going to write them down. Now, this piece is getting a lot of attention because people are sharing it and making fun of it. But his normal pieces. Could you imagine you're at a party and they're like, what do you do? I write opinion pieces for the New York Times. And the response from like the garbage man who's at the party is like, yeah, but nobody reads them. Or the plumber who's like, oh, the New York Times, I put that thing down below below a pipe I'm working on in case water spills out and I have to throw it away. Like, I feel weird. People are like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a lawyer, but I mostly post stuff on YouTube. And they're like, you do? That's strange. I'm like, I know. I mean, I'm just a jackass with an opinion. That's all. That's it. I'm just a guy. Just a guy. Happened to find an algorithm that worked. That's it. This guy doesn't think he found an algorithm that worked because he sucked off a gatekeeper and he got past the gate. That's the difference. They don't like quote unquote grifters. They don't like attention hijackers because they're able I'm gonna proud grift. I'm a grifter, motherfucker. Full grifters. What we're able to do is we're able to directly connect with people over and over and over again. We don't need a gatekeeper. We don't need the promotion of the New York Times. We don't need a fake injection right up the anus of prestige or clout that these people need. And they're scared of that. They're scared of the grifter's ability to connect. Don't even pay attention to me. Look at someone like The Quartering or hell, Critical or PewDiePie. Like the level of grift and attention that they're able to garner through charisma. Something these people will never have. Do you think anybody goes to a party, meets this guy, and is like, oh, yeah, I can't wait to talk to this? Nobody does. But Keemstar, like a weirdo on the internet like Keemstar, and a million people want to listen to him? Camelot 331, that guy. See him in the chat. What's up, buddy? Hundreds of thousands of people want to listen to him. Hundreds of thousands of people want to listen to some dumbass in Minnesota drinking whiskey, giving opinions. And no one wants to talk to them. Nobody. It's high school all over again, and they're the virgin again. And they hate it. They hate it. They hate it. They hate it. Okay, in 2016, Mr. Caulfield met Mr. Weinberg, who suggested modeling the process after the way professional fact checkers assess information. Mr. Caulfield refined the practice into 4 simple principles. Stop. Investigate the source. Find better coverage. Trace claims, quotes, and media to the original context. Daniel Lindsay, don't take offense. I was a virgin in high school too. I speak from experience. I know all about it. Bad Vibe says they can't out-argue racers because the left is racers. I agree. I'm not attacking virgins. Ryukin, I'm not in any way attacking virgins. Not at all. Like I said, that was me. I'm describing myself throughout high school and a good chunk of college. It's not in any way an attack. But look, there was in-group and out-group. It was very much out-group. And I would suggest that many, many virgin males are out-group in high school right now. Ace Brain 2003 says that author looks like a soy version of Rick Moranis. Yes. Absolutely. Ben versus Reality says, I was a virgin until I had sex. Me too, buddy. Me too, buddy. Why are you defending yourself making fun of virgins? Because I think this is going to sound super gay, but I think virginity is actually a virtue nowadays. I think the pendulum on culture has shifted dramatically. I think it's literally shifted dramatically. And I think people should look. I've always been a proponent of waiting, some level, because I was Catholic or whatever. But no, I think there's a lot of value because these hoes ain't loyal. These hoes ain't loyal, and I think we're gonna see a cultural shift in that soon. And if you don't believe me that these hoes ain't loyal, did you see the Capitol rioter who got turned in by his ex-girlfriend after he called her fat or something? Damn. CJ says, confirmed all meteorologists are racist because they tell people to look at storm fronts. Also, climate change causes storm fronts. Thusly, all news companies are racist and cause climate change because they hire meteorologists. Well, look, meteorologists are a step above lawyers, but not a big step. Okay. Otherwise known as SIFT. Oh, God, I didn't even see it. Of course they would come up with an acronym. Of course. Stop, investigate, find, and trace. That's SIFT. That's a mnemonic you can remember. Mr. Caulfield walked me through the process using an Instagram post from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a prominent anti-vaccine activist, falsely alleging a link between the human papillomavirus vaccine and cancer. So HPV. HPV and cancer. If this is not a claim where I have a depth of understanding, then I want to stop for a second and before going further, just investigate the source, Mr. Caulfield said. He copied Mr. Kennedy's name in the Instagram post and popped it into Google. Look how fast this is. He told me as he counted the seconds out loud. In 15 seconds. What is he on, rural internet? What is this? He navigated to Wikipedia and scrolled through the introductory section of the page, highlighting with his cursor the last sentence, which reads that Mr. Kennedy is an anti-vaccine activist and a conspiracy theorist. Look at that critical thinking that they use. Look, just put their name in the wiki. And once you go to the Wikipedia, you'll learn everything you need to know. You'll learn everything you need to know from the Wikipedia. Can you believe this? And this journalist guy, this opinion writer is like, yeah. Teach me, senpai. How do I do it? Oh, Oni-chan, I will loosen up for you in your words. Is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. the best unbiased source on information about a vaccine? I'd argue no, and that's good enough to know we should probably just move on. This is a logical fallacy as well. It's two of them. It's a genetic fallacy. We can't trust this information because it comes from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That's genetic fallacy. And then it's an appeal to authority fallacy. There are better authorities on the subject that you should listen to, and their authority makes them right. And if you don't understand that, I'm going to write a letter to your manager and tell him that you're a fucking idiot. He probed. Oh, God. He probed deeper into the method to find better coverage by copying the main claim in Mr. Kennedy's post and pasting that into a Google search. The first two results came from Agence France Presse's fact-check website and the National Institutes of Health. His quick searches showed a pattern. Mr. Kennedy's claims were outside the consensus, a sign they were motivated by something other than science. That is not at all what that means. That's not this. These are logical fallacies. Again, these are fallacies. Just because something is outside the consensus doesn't mean it's otherwise motivated. It might be incorrect. It might be misinformed. It might have some nefarious motive. Doesn't mean that it's motivated by something other than science. In fact, lots of science occurs outside of the consensus. This is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. The SIFT method in the instructional teaching unit, about 6 hours of classwork. Oh, kill me! That accompanies it has been picked up by dozens of universities. 6 hours? I just read it in an article. Why does it take 6 hours to learn this? What the hell? What are they talking about? 6 hours of classwork? And in some Canadian high schools. What is potentially revolutionary about SIFT is that it focuses on making quick judgments. A SIFT fact check can and should take 30, 60, 90 seconds to evaluate a piece of content. Look, this is how you intelligently approach something. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. The 4 steps are based on the premise that you often make a better decision with less information than you do with more. So wait, but no! Good! Dang it! Ah! I hate internally inconsistent statements. Okay, accepting this as true, okay? Let's accept this as true. You often make a better decision with less information than you do with more. They're literally advocating for you to gather more information. But what they're advocating is for you to gather that additional information in a specific way, in a specific manner. I'm not even getting to this being objectively wrong. This is objectively wrong, by the way. Making a better decision with less information than more isn't true. That's a very stupid statement. But that being said, look at the internal inconsistency. They're saying that you make a better decision with less information than you do with more, yet they're telling you to acquire more information to determine if the decision you're making is correct. They're just advocating that you make less of a more information. Does that make sense? They don't want you to think too deep, but they want you to think beyond your initial reaction. So they're literally inconsistent with their own fucking position. I hate this stuff. Also, spending 15 minutes to determine a single fact in order to decipher a tweet or a piece of news coming from a source that you've never seen before will often leave you more confused than you were before. So? Being confused is not problematic. Being confused or baffled or wanting, would you like to know more? Click, click. That's not a problem. It's not inherently bad. Quote, the questions we want students asking is this a good source for this purpose, or could I find something better relatively quickly? Mr. Caulfield said, I've seen in the classroom where a student finds a great answer in 3 minutes, but then keeps going and ends up won over by bad information. It's the opposite, by the way, of legal writing. In legal writing, you're trained to not just find the good answer. You also have to address the bad answer. You're almost ethically obligated to address the bad or weaker argument. It's your job. It's your job. Should be your job in academia, where you don't have any real responsibility. It's academia. You have all the time in the world to dick around. We should be encouraging people to dick around. It's academia. None of it matters. It's all pretend. These people live in a fucking fantasy world. Imagine your entire life is a professorship where nothing you say is ever tested in reality. You just have to convince enough idiots that they should listen to you and that they should force other people to listen to you. Once you've convinced the one guy, the dean, to force other people to listen to you for money, and your theory will never be tested or challenged in a real-world endeavor, you've hit it. You've made it. You're golden, baby. By the way, we're at 838 likes. I would love to see that hit 1,000 if you are so inclined. If you're enjoying this stream, if you are opposed to critical thinking, hit like. Hit like. Don't even think about it. Look, if you think too hard on hitting like, you're not going to hit like, and I don't want that. I want you to not think about it too much. I want you to just hit the fucking button because a trusted source said so. That's how this works. That's what the New York Times is telling us. Bad Vibe says, ask Galileo about consensus. Wasn't he labeled a heretic? Look, Galileo was a heretic. The Earth is flat. It's in the middle of the solar system, and Australia isn't real. Mither Nemmer says, so if I need to get less information, then should I uncritically have accepted Kennedy's position as the first place and not employed their method to find a different source? As you say, Nick, this is just inconsistent. Yes, it is. It's terribly inconsistent. It's also stupid. You'll find this very frequently, by the way. Not just in academia, but all over the place. You'll find that people's internal arguments are logically inconsistent with themselves. I didn't eat lunch and I didn't eat dinner. I just had breakfast. Now we're a couple drinks deep. If I start going on about the truth about, some group of people, it's the liquor talking. Okay, SIFT has its limits. No fucking kidding. It's designed for casual news consumers, not experts or those attempting to do deep research. Look at the disdain they have for people. Look at the disdain they have for the average person. Look. SIFT is good for the proletariat. But the bourgeois should avoid SIFT. We're the arbiters of truth. We don't want to debase ourselves to being stupid like the masses. The masses should use SIFT because they're not fit to think for themselves. And we have just discovered the truth about this person, right? It's no longer a mystery. They hate normal people. They hate it. They hate them. They hate them. They hate them. They hate normal people. They hate real people. I hate to go back to Ayn Rand, but have you fucking read Atlas Shrugged lately? Or Fountainhead if you don't. Like if you want to cut 400 pages off of Atlas Shrugged, just read Fountainhead. This is a gay meme as well. They're two of the most important books you can possibly read. I'm not joking. The left makes fun of Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead for a reason. They make fun of them for a reason. The reason is that they're threatening. Anthem is your shit, Contra Deception. Anthem is based and red-pilled as fuck. But we're talking about Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead. The journalists in both of them. The journalists in Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead. The writers. They're writing. Nobody's buying their stuff. They can't sell it. But they want all of the laud and accolade from the academics, from the upper class, from this protected class of people. They don't get any money from it. They don't make anything from it. This guy's an opinion writer for the New York Times. He's not making any money. This guy's probably broke. Blake Martin, that was Anthem. Danielle says, We the Living deserves more love as well. We the Living's fantastic. It's fantastic. This guy is probably, he's living in a piss-filled apartment with roaches crawling around all over him. But he's lauded. He's getting paid in accolade. I write for the New York Times. You write the opinion piece, bro. They let Rand Paul write them too. You're just a weirdo who has somehow managed to excite and arouse a gatekeeper. That's it. That's it. They hate normal people. They can't do it. If they were if these people went to like a local meetup of business owners, they would be so out of their depth. They'd be uncomfortable. They'd be pouring people coffee and they'd remain as like the de facto barista. That's what would happen. I've seen this happen. That's what they do. They'd sit there at the coffee pot. Like, no, I'll get your coffee. Here you go. Like, what do you do? Yeah. They have no idea. They have no idea how to function in a group of real people who work. Real people who have to earn a living. Real people who talk about real things. Real people who have families. Real people who have friends. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. They're completely incapable of surviving. Sorry. A reporter working on an investigative story or trying to synthesize complex information will have to go deep. But for someone just trying to figure out a basic fact, it's not helpful. It's helpful not to get bogged down. We've been trained to think that Googling or just checking one resource we trust is almost like cheating, he said. But when people search Google, the best results may not always be first. But the good information is usually near the top. Often you see a pattern in the links of a consensus that's being formed. But deeper into the process, it often gets weirder. It's important to know when to stop. Stop looking, peasant. You might find something uncomfortable. Again, they don't have faith in normal people's ability to discern information. So they must tell them to stop trying. It's balls deep, not Fuda deep. Only balls deep. A-wig. Christina Latham, an assistant political science professor at the University of Nevada, Reno, has seen the damage firsthand. While teaching an introductory class as a PhD student in 2015, she noticed her students had trouble vetting sources and distinguishing credible news from untrustworthy information. Maybe they didn't have trouble. That's the uncomfortable question for all these people. Maybe no one's having trouble with it. Maybe they just don't trust the quote-unquote credible. Maybe they have a different standard for credible than you. Maybe they're not having trouble at all. During one research assignment on the 2016 presidential race, multiple students cited a debunked claim from a satirical website claiming that Ben Carson, a candidate that year, had been endorsed by the Ku Klux Klan. Some of these students had never had somebody even talk to them about checking sources or looking for fake news, she told me. It was just uncritical acceptance if it fit with the narrative in their head, or complete rejection if it didn't. Here she is. Here she is. Looking mildly overweight. Yeah, I said it! She's fucking fat! Get over it! If you don't look like a model, why aren't you even trying? Fuck off. You're going to get the truth. You're going to get the truth. Is my wife fat? No. Not even close. Not even close. Nisa now, what is it with you and fat girls? Fat girls? Fat people. I'm a fattest. I am prejudiced against fat people automatically. Take away their buffet card. Miss Latham started teaching a SIF-based media literacy unit in her political science classes because of the method's practical application. Fat shamer? Yes, absolutely. I'm an all-shamer, by the way. I shame you for everything that you do that's wrong, but no one can shame you as hard as yourself. No one can shame you as hard as yourself. But I will try. I will try. They make the rockin' world go round. Fat bottom girls. Sorry. I'm getting off. You guys got me drinking gin then whiskey. It's your fault. Wolvenar, I've met you. You're not even close to fat. Knock it off. Miss Latham started teaching a SIF-based media literacy unit in her political science classes because of the method's practical application. I think we lost 100 viewers when I made fun of fat people. That's awesome. The unit is short, only 2 weeks long. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of some kid's life who spent thousands of dollars to listen to this fat lady talk. Thousands of dollars. They take 2 weeks of their fucking life and put it into this shit. 2 weeks. It's only 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Do you know what I do in 2 weeks? Do you guys have any idea? If I'm not making $10,000 in 2 weeks, I'm questioning my life goals. I'm questioning my choices. These motherfuckers are paying thousands of dollars to listen to this for 2 weeks. Tell them that they don't know how to do a Google search. Jesus Christ, our colleges are in fucking trouble. They're on fire. They're on fire. Two weeks. Imagine 2 weeks of your life dedicated to this. What else could you do? You could be courting a woman or a man. I don't judge. You could be perfecting how to cook a pizza. You could be exploring the wonders of brisket. You could drive across the country and back. You could find and sample prostitutes along the way legally. You could ski. You could learn how to play pool or poker. You could imagine what you could do with 2 weeks of time. 2 weeks. They're taking a kid's life. Their life that they paid. I call myself a grifter. I have nothing on this. I have nothing on this. Thousands of dollars paid for that thing to teach you how to Google her way for 2 weeks. I'm dumbstruck by this. You could learn more by talking to people at a bar for 2 weeks. Those people are real. People work. They live in the world. They don't live in a fantasy fucking Twitter land. Imagine this course is how to argue on Twitter. What less useful skill in the world is there than that? This doesn't help you collaborate on a work project. This doesn't help you navigate a sexual harassment claim. It doesn't do anything useful at all. This is how to do Twitter. I can't imagine. I can't imagine if I was sending my kids to college and I pray to God they don't want to go. If I was sending my kids to college and they came home and they're like, "Hey, Dad, what we learned today from the professor was that the news source we're looking at might be wrong, and we should do is Google and follow the top result." Really? You learned you should follow the top result on Google. Let me tell you about algorithms and pay for play, but you that's what you're following. Yeah. Okay. You're out. What? You're out of school. Oh. Why? Because this is trash. I'm not paying for this anymore. I'm not paying for this. It's over. It's over. Sorry. Her students latched on to quick tricks like how to hover over a Twitter handle and see if the account looks legitimate or is a parody account or impersonation. Or bot. They're not saying it. Look at the bot. The bot account. Bad Vibe says, want to read a book that shows society in groups? Read Animal Farm. Mithrin Emmer says, not to derail a fine rant, but 2 weeks would be 6 one-hour classes or 4 1.5-hour classes. Still too long to spend on this stupidity. Yes. 6 hours? 6 hours. I've got a tip for all the virgins out there. Go to a bar and spend 6 hours asking every woman politely if they would like to go somewhere else. Every woman. Everyone. Just walk up to everyone and say, hey, my name's Bob. I think you look really pretty. Would you like to go somewhere quiet and talk? Just do that for 6 hours and see how you do. See how you do. I bet that's better. But that's a better use of your time. Or spend 6 hours in church finding Jesus. They learned how to reverse image search using Google to check if a photo had been doctored or if similar photos had been published by trusted news outlets. Students were taught to identify claims in Facebook or Instagram posts and, with a few searches, decide, even if they're unsure of the veracity, whether the account seems to be a trustworthy guide or if they should look elsewhere. Do you love Jesus? Yes. I know there is a God, 'cause I see these ladies before me, and I know that a creator made them. I know he loves them. I know he loves me. I know he sculpted them from the clay, and he breathed the life into them, and he breathed a little extra, if you know what I mean. I know that God loves you. I know that God loves me. All right. The goal isn't to make political judgments or to talk students out of a particular point of view, but to try to get them to understand the context of a source of information and make decisions about its credibility. The course is not precious about overly academic sources either. Ugh. The students are confused when I tell them to try and trace something down with a quick Wikipedia search, because they've been told not to do it, she said. Not for research papers, but if you're trying to find out if a site is legitimate or if somebody has a history as a conspiracy theorist, and you show them how to follow the page's citation, it's quick and effective, which means it's more likely to be used. Batgoat says, hallelujah! As a journalist who can be a bit of a snob about research methods, it makes me anxious to type this advice. Use Wikipedia for quick guidance. Spend less time torturing yourself with complex primary sources. A part of my brain hears this and reflexively worries these methods could be exploited by conspiracy theorists. But listening to Miss Latham and Mr. Caulfield describe disinformation dynamics, it seems that snobs like me have it backwards. Listen to this guy! Ah! He's so uncritical. He's such a noodle-dicked pile of garbage. He doesn't even realize that they're telling him the opposite of what he knows to be true. He knows it. His training, everything about it. Look, I'm a journalist. I have to vet my sources. I have to make sure they're right. I have to go through this and this and this. Everything they're telling me is wrong, but they're telling me, though. They're telling me, so I must be incorrect? What the hell is wrong with you? You're not a snob. It's not snobbery. Can't believe this. Think about YouTube conspiracy theorists or many QAnon or anti-vaccine influencers. Their tactic, as Mr. Caulfield noted. Is it Mr.? I thought it was Miss Caulfield. No, it's Miss Latham. Mr. Caulfield, okay. Is to flatter viewers while overloading them with 3-hour videos laced with debunked claims and pseudoscience. Oh shit! They're on to me. I'm out. I'm back. 3-hour videos laced with debunked claims and pseudoscience, as well as legitimate information. The internet offers this illusion of explanatory depth, he said. Until 20 seconds ago, you'd never thought about, say, race and IQ. But now, suddenly, someone is treating you like an expert. Bell curve mother... It's flattering your intellect, and so you engage. But you don't really stand a chance because you're too dumb to argue against the bell curve. That's not an argument. It's not an argument. Look, it's not it's their mother's fault. Their mother should have taught them how to look better. If you understand mothers and how they're terrible, you'd understand why they don't know how to argue. Sorry, that was a little jab. what he described as kind of an informational hubris we have that is quite difficult to fight. But what SIFT and Mr. Caulfield lessons seem to do is flatter their students in a different way by reminding us our attention is precious. The goal of SIFT isn't to be the arbiter of truth, but to instill a reflex that asks if something is worth one's time and attention and to turn away if not. Because the method, this is thought bubble, information bubble 101. That's all this is. It's literally all it is. Just build an information bubble and get in it. Get in it and jerk off until you're dead. Because the method is less interested in political judgments. Wrong. It's the opposite. Mr. Caulfield and Miss Landham noticed students across the political spectrum are more likely to embrace it. By the end of the 2-week course, Miss Latham said, students are better at finding primary sources for research papers. In discussions, they're less likely to fall back on motivated reasoning. Students tend to be less defensive when confronted with a piece of information they disagree with. Even if their opinions on broader issues don't change, a window is open. It makes conversation possible. Perhaps most promising, she has seen her students share the methods with family members, post dubious news stories online. It sounds so simple, but I think that teaching people how to check their news source, even by even a quick Wikipedia, can have profound effects, she said. SIFT is not an antidote to misinformation. Poor media literacy is just one component of a broader problem that includes more culpable actors like politicians, platforms, and conspiracy peddlers. If powerful, influential people, the ability to command vast quantities of attention, as opposed to them who can command no attention, use that power to warp reality and platforms don't intervene, no mnemonic device can stop them. But SIFT may add a bit of friction into the system. Notice this one. Platforms don't intervene. We've got to get the platforms to stop these people from talking. When the platforms don't work, it'll be ropes and bullets. Most important, it urges us to take the attention we save with SIFT and apply it to issues that matter to us. Right now, we are taking the scarcest, most valuable resource we have, our attention, and we're using it to try to repair the horribly broken information ecosystem. Your attention is not the scarcest, most valuable resource you have. It is neither of those things. We're throwing good money after bad. Our focus isn't free, and yet we're giving it away with every glance at a screen. But it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, the economics are in our favor. Demand for our attention is an all-time high, and we control supply. It's time we increased our price. So there you go. Don't think. Don't think. I know just what you're thinking. You don't need no reasons. Don't think because it hurts. Ugh. Ugh. Painful. Painful bullshit. It's just bullshit. It's all bullshit. This is what they think of you, though. It's what they think of you. It's what they think of me. It's what they think of everybody who's not in their elite cadre of journalism school. Now, I have a couple other stories, but it's getting late, so I might just do one. See, which one do I want to do? Let's just do this one. This will be a quick one. we'll just do this one story, and then you can tell me what you think. I don't even know what to do anymore. And then we're going to wrap up. And then I'm going to go to bed. I would love to do a Twitch tonight, but I think I'm not in shape to do a Twitch stream tonight. I'm going to try and get one for tomorrow, and I'll try and do some over the weekend. Because I really wish I was doing Twitch streams. I like them. They're so much fun, but I'm wiped out. I'm wiped out. Here we go. Can we see this? Is this all on the screen? Okay, yeah. Look at this. Look at this. Approval of Congress. Highest in 12 years, poll finds. The poll found that the heightened support was driven by Democrats, whose approval of Congress has doubled since January. Oh, has it? Oh, has it? More than 1/3 of Americans approve of the job Congress is doing, the highest mark measured in more than a decade. New Gallup poll found that 35% of Americans approve of Congress, a 10 percentage point increase since the last poll in January and the highest approval rating in almost 12 years. First of all, let's just go ahead and point out how embarrassing it is that 2/3 of your employers think you're doing a bad job. They're celebrating 35%. Of course, this poll is skewed. They're celebrating a third of people. All right. The latest survey was conducted from February 3rd to the 18th as the Senate tried former President Donald Trump on a second impeachment charge related to the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. Why don't you do it now? Now that little impeachment trial's over, why don't you do it now when they didn't vote to impeach and they still haven't sent out stimulus checks and they're putting kids in goddamn cages on the border and pretending that they're not? Why don't you do it now? The last time support of Congress was higher was in 2009 with an approval rating of 39% early during the Obama administration. Let's be real clear on something here, because this is informative and instructive. And this goes to the debunking of this straight away. Notice when that last approval rating was. 39% in 2009. The highest approval rating in recent history. What happened in the next election? What happened with that huge approval rating that they had? How did that next election go? I'll wait. They got their asses fed to them in 2010. They got their asses fed to them in 2010. Highest approval rating in recent history. Oh, 39% of people approve of Congress. They got primaried. They got voted out of office like nobody's business. Republicans came in and cleaned the goddamn house real quick in 2010. Doesn't make any sense. They had the highest approval ratings. Everything was going so well. Same thing's going on now. It's the same thing. Gallup began measuring congressional support in 1974, and it has historically averaged 30%. However, since 2005, it has averaged just 21%. The lawmaking body did garner approval ratings of 30% or higher twice last year after it passed the $2 trillion COVID-19 Relief Act. Support also rose significantly after Congress passed a second relief bill in late December, increasing from 15 to 25%. So, Gibbs, you give me money and I approve of Congress. That's how it goes. 10% of people literally say, give me money and I'll approve of your job. That's how accurate this poll is. The increase in support is driven by Democrats, who give Congress a far higher approval rating than Republicans. 61% compared to 8%. Approval among Democrats has doubled since January when it sat at 30%. Support from Republicans has declined from January, however, when it sat at 17%. So there you go. That's what's going on. Look, I find this funny because back in 2009, their approval rating was the highest ever. The next year, they got hollowed out like a porn star with a bad agreement. They look like Piper Perry on the couch in 2009. Everybody loves me. 5 minutes later, they're sitting there getting all of their orifices explored by things that are way too big. That's what happened in 2010. So anyway, I saw this. I wanted to share. Thought it was funny. Thought you guys might enjoy knowing that this Congress is the most popular in recent history. Of course it is. Now, that's not borne out by any anecdotal experience where the people are like, so wait, this new Congress is in. They're putting kids in cages. They're not doing the stimulus. And I'm out of work. Fuck. Okay. Anyway, we're going to do the super chats and then we're going to wrap up the show. I have enjoyed this very, very much. I hope you also have enjoyed it. And I hope you come back tomorrow as well. Of course, as always. Mario Carter 13 says, quite frankly, I find it absurd. Someone claimed Joe said the N-word. He's just eager to hear what kind of knee gear would allow Kamala to be seen but not heard. Come on. Come on now. Joe Biden says, listen here, you dog-faced pony soldier. I can say the N-word. Both Barry and Kamala gave me the N-word pass. Since they're each half black, that equals 1 pass. Do the math. Atari Jaguar. I think Hunter wants that for Christmas. Time for bed. Anonymous says, what if I post a threat of dropping a mad deuce after I ate some Chipotle? That will not be moderated. Crusader Saracen says, hey, Nick, what do you say to people who don't homeschool because they're afraid their children will be socially stunted? I would say don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. First of all, very quickly, if your barometer for a socially adjusted child is a kid in public school, let me humbly and politely ask you to think deeply about that. Don't sift that one out. Don't sift that one out. Think deeply about that. And as personal anecdotal evidence, I'll say this. When I got out of high school, the big goal of everyone I knew from high school was to not be like we were in high school. And if you ran into someone who was stuck in that sort of high school mentality, you look down on them. Do you know why you look down on them? Because kids in school are awful people. They're not good. They're not good. They're not socialized. They have to deprogram. Your kid acting like other kids who are in public school is not a good thing. It's actually a bad thing. Teach your kid how to live in the real world where you live. Teach your kid how to interact with adults in a real way, the way you do. That's important. Teaching them to socialize into a system that they'll have to deprogram out of isn't helpful. 667MD says, behind on the live chat, but hearing Nick talk about hoes not being loyal, making fun of virgins, and being openly proud of his grifter status is mixing very well with my whiskey. Here's a few extra dollars, grifter. Keep grifting and grinding. Hey, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. Okay, so that's what I have to say to them, Crusader. Malik Foxon says, is this guy seriously saying, hey, don't think, just accept everything on its face? I never thought I'd hear someone advocate for a lack of critical thinking. Silly arguments don't sway anybody but people whose backs are made of jello. Because you're misreading this a little bit. It's not that these people lack conviction. It's that they consider the majority of people to be retards that are easily influenced. I had this conversation with a film critic on YouTube recently. LaPierre Hammer for Prison says, New York Times, don't question what you're reading. Also, New York Times, the Holodomor never happened. The death of 4 million Ukrainians in 1932 was an exaggeration or malignant propaganda, and we will never give up the Pulitzer we won for saying that. Night of Hope says they think stories such as those in films can harm people because they assume most people aren't smart enough to perform the critical analysis that they would. They assume no durability on the part of individuals or society. It's very bigoted, really. It's super bigoted. They're terrible. Terrible people. Malik says, they can't come up with a better argument than racism made me laugh, because what is their argument every time a black person draws the short straw when a white man is involved? I'll give you the 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count. Nova Zero says, hey, Nikki, definitely get that local set up. It'd be much easier to consolidate all your community content. And please, please calm down with the hard grifta. We don't need to contribute to that hateful language. Bill says, go to the source, read opposing viewpoints, intuit truth, fight your bias, think about your larger context. Grift will set you free. Yes, the main things on locals, the holdups right now, and I just started talking to them, so this isn't that long. It's getting the channel art ready. Getting everything in place so that when you go there, you know where you are. And then the other part is figuring out the tiers, because Patreon has an unlimited amount of tiers, and I have 4. I have $1, $5, $10, and $20 on Patreon. Locals has 2 tiers, only 2. So I have to figure out what those are and how to implement them. And then the third thing, and the one that's most important to me, is that Locals doesn't have automatic Discord integration like Patreon. And I know that many people like the Discord community specifically. So I want to make sure that I have hammered out the plan for managing Discord membership. Because I don't want that to go away. I know people value it. So that's that. Malik says, so Wikipedia is your main source. I think it's a great place for finding sources, but you definitely don't stop there if you're doing real research. So he outed himself as a shit researcher. Yes. Night of Hope says, shit, I'm virgin and outgroup right now. Been a couple decades since high school. Not going to sit here and pretend me or my life is great about it. It's not. It's funny, though, how people will lash out to defend what they insist doesn't bother them. Crusader says, sorry, I haven't been watching, donating much. Never, please, never apologize for that. Work and learning Unreal Engine has been keeping me busy. May Christ shower blessings and good fortunes upon you. Also, please say, I love chocolate, but I can't eat it because it makes me fat. But it's so good. There you go. Bad Dragonite says, just don't question the wrong conspiracies like Russian election meddling, robots, or Australia existing. If you do that, we'll have to silence your hate speech. Malik says, so in other words, quote, I have successfully brainwashed this entire class and they're spreading my propaganda for me to their families. Fucking blatant these motherfuckers are. These people are so smart they don't realize how stupid they sound when they talk. Mario Carter says, what's the difference between a racist and a leftist? I've never seen a racist in blackface. Oh, damn. JL not here. Welcome to lawyer status. Thank you. Thank you. The Buzz CJC says, why does Locals sound like a hookup site for boomers? Because it is. F-Name L-Name says, if I sign up to Locals, will Ruben groom me like the Lincoln Project? Because that's a requirement from me, dog. No, but I will. Angry Baneling says, these Knicks ain't loyal. Nick's massage chair. True. Talix001 says, we know what you do in your massage chair. Please check your last Gab post. My last Gab post? What does that have to do with anything? No. No, that's not even right. Look at this. Look at this blasphemy. Disgusting. Oh my God. Ew. Ew. Jordan Jones says, I'm late to the party, but getting a Locals account is a great idea. The server has a significant amount of security. I follow a few folk over there, and I will gladly add you to the list. Wolfgang Deo says, GME and AMC, though, I'm up 30%. Was this the only erection frog case thrown out? No, all of them were. All of the election cases were thrown out. Random NPC number 3 says Epstein is alive and Linwood has the proof. It's hidden in Hillary's emails on Hunter's laptop. Wolfgang says it's not moot just because the baby was born. Wolfgang says keep your weird ass in Missoula, guy. Don't spread. Flamethrower 82 says being racist isn't illegal. No, it's not. It is absolutely not. That's an important distinction. They're trying to make it illegal at every turn, but it's not. Backcoat says, for King Daddy Grift, you are the original. We got your back. Hey, thanks, buddy. 200 Watt Studio says, Caulfield is right. Hear me now and believe me later. Hans and Franz, philosophers in residence at 24 Fitness. Wir hit the pump. You up. Helios Comas says, got some Lagavulin 16 on hand, but I don't know if that's if even that's strong enough for this heresy. Friendly reminder to contribute to the greater good. I got 2 new books, guys. I got Dawn of Fire, number 2, The Gate of Bones, by the way. Since we're talking about the greater good, which inherently means Warhammer. And the one I'm slightly more excited about, Alfarius, head of the Hydra. What? There. Head of the Hydra. We are not gods, we are creations of science, and herein lies our problem, for we are neither human nor divine. We are flawed versions of both. Wolfgang Deo says, a trans person is still a man. Oh my God, bigot. No, 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 I will not think for myself. Stop it. Not one of us says the left can't out-argue Stormfront because they can't out-argue those who are less racist than them. Damn. F-Name L-Name says, so the antidote to having a brain is state-sponsored ad hominems? Yes. Wolfgang Deo says, if it is outside the consensus, it is likely right. Andrew War Snowboard says, I've never read Anthem, but I've sang it. Does that count? No. How have you not read Anthem? What? Andrew! Wolfgang Deo says, okay, Nick, tell us what you really think. Well, I do. Joshua Sanabria says, this is quality content right here. Look, I always aim to provide quality content. Nick's Hex says, has Dave Baker read Anthem yet? No, of course not. Dave Baker's a coward and a fool. I actually don't like him. I think he's bad at being a congressman. He won't read Anthem because he's a baby. Wolfgang Dale says, I bought a Dvorak keyboard. Practice is hard. Oh, God. Big Red Bear says, after that image, I believe with firm evidence that Nick has become shillocrat. Hashtag shame. You should have at least become a socialist. Never. Better dead than red. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out tonight. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to go catch some Z's, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right? Genuinely, thanks for hanging out. Let's play that outro, and I'll talk to you then. Peace. Whoop. I gotta set up the speakers. Peace. Peace.
Oh, he drinks a fair bit, but you realize that it just helps get his noggin jogging along. With his glass by his side and his kids asleep tight, we'll hear some law-splaining tonight. With his microphone muted, we'll laugh at this boomer until he explains it's all part of the plan. Watch his face become redder as he becomes meta, raging at idiots from Twitterland. From the white shores of Maine to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, his lady is fair, and she handles herself with the grace of one who has borne many children. As the wife of a lawman, she makes sure that he has the time and the place to provide for them there. So pour out an ardbeg, a bow, more of Lafroig. The spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear law-splaining tonight. From the white shores of Nairn to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we are now. Oh, the guests are all plentiful, from Doug T to Drexel. They bring their perspective and spice to the mix. But the reason we're here and the one that we cheer is the one who is showcasing us his career. Get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear law-splaining tonight. From the white shores of Nairn to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law